Hytale has loads of different tree types, and each one grows completely differently. So I've spent the last few weeks of my life investigating every single tree type in the game. I've done loads of different tests to find the optimal conditions for each tree, and this video is the ultimate summary of all my findings. So today, the video you've been asking for me in the comments is finally here. So let's get straight into it. We will cover the conditions required for each tree type, so if there's a specific one you're looking for, then skip ahead using the chapters below. To begin with, let's start with the basics to get a general understanding for how trees grow. Have you been struggling to get your trees to grow fully? Well, there are two things that every sapling requires, and these are a block to be placed on and space to grow. The block you can place on can be any variant of dirt, mud, grass, gravel or sand, although it's probably not that part you've been struggling with. The other requirement is the space required, and well, that does depend on the tree type, and we will cover that for every different type of tree. I'm sure you've noticed that trees don't grow fully from their sapling, they grow in stages, gradually increasing in size each time. For almost all of the saplings, it takes 2 full days since planting to reach full growth. For each tree, there's just one specific model that will appear once a sapling grows to that stage, and it can be in one of 4 rotations, so that's why they end up looking different. But what's interesting is the orientation is not random, it is predetermined by the sapling's coordinates. So a tree will always grow the same rotation if the sapling is placed on the same block. This fig tree, it's the same rotation as it was before. So this is probably a useful feature for tree farms, I'm sure. Now there are multiple things that will prevent a tree from advancing to the next stage. The first one is by breaking any part of the tree that isn't leaves. So if you accidentally break a branch or break a log in the trunk or the roots, the tree will not grow to the next stage, even if you put that block back again. So this is the easiest method for keeping trees at smaller stages for aesthetic purposes on your builds, but do be careful not to break an important block or the whole tree will come crashing down, and this method isn't possible without destroying the tree for some types. So there's another method we will cover later. The other reason a tree might not grow to the next stage is not having enough space. This can be in all directions, including below, as most of the tree types need to grow roots in their later stages. So planting your sapling in dirt too shallow or too close to a wall or another tree can stop it from growing. So for making a farm, it's always best to put the sapling on a spike or a floating block, as this way we can ensure that there's no blocks below that will prevent the root growth. But if you're growing trees as part of a build or for aesthetic reasons, then make sure you check how deep the first layer of stone is, as this can very easily be too shallow and prevent the roots from the larger stages from growing, keeping the tree from reaching its full size. Once a tree has failed to grow, it is stuck in that stage and it won't ever grow bigger, even if you remove the blocks that were constricting it. So this is the second method for purposefully keeping trees in smaller stages. Almost any type of block will prevent tree growth, including other logs. The only blocks that won't prevent a tree growing are ones with no collision box, such as leaves, and the blocks that the sapling can grow on that we listed earlier, as logs are able to replace these as they grow. So without further ado, let's go look at the sapling conditions required for each tree. Logically, we should start with the saplings unlocked at a tier 1 workbench and work upwards. But there's some funny business with those saplings that we will get to later that add complexity. So instead, let's start with the tier 2 saplings unlocked at the level 3 farmer's workstation. These are Camphor, Gumbaob and Birch, and these 3 each cost 10 life essence each to craft. So Camphor. The tooltip says 1 stage and NA days, which is nonsense. There are 5 stages and it takes 2 days to grow through them, which is the same for almost all the trees regardless of what the tooltip says. And here are what those 5 stages look like. So let's investigate the conditions we need to get this tree to grow to its maximum size. So here I am at my big radius machine. At this test location, I'll be able to test the dirt depth required and the minimum spacing between saplings that is needed. Let's begin then. So with 1 dirt deep of camphor, what do we get? It appears we reach all the way to the final growth stage, so that's awesome. We don't need to worry about dirt depth for this one. Now, another reason for trees not reaching their full size is obstacles and other trees being too near. So let's see how far away we need to go for other camphor trees to grow fully. Looking at the size of the branches, let's try saplings on this light blue cloth here. Yep, they all seem to grow fully. Let's try closer on the green wall. Okay, one of these didn't grow. So light blue it is, which is a radius of 14 blocks from the original sapling. Let's quickly try out some non-90 degree angles and at other points in the circle. Yep, and these two also grew fully, so it is a circular radius, not a square distance to determine obstructions. This kind of makes sense as the shape of a tree from above is basically a circle and not a square. So using diagonal distances, we can pack trees closer together in a tree farm. When we destroy a camphor tree, we can expect to get on average 109 logs, 64.8 sticks, 5.8 fibre and 15 tree saps. So now back to the different camphor stages. So what if you, like I did here, want to purposefully have a smaller stage? I already said that you can remove a log and then replace it, which will work for these larger stages, but these twiggy stages you can't do that at all. So here is how you can purposefully constrict each stage without destroying parts of the tree. To keep the sapling as a sapling, just put a block directly above it, and this will work for all saplings. To keep the stage 1 tree, place a block 3 blocks above where the sapling was. To keep it at stage 2 tree, put it 5 blocks above. To keep it at stage 3 or 4, instead surround the trunk to prevent it from growing outwards. Once these blocks have been placed for a day or so, you can remove them. As like I explained earlier, once the tree has failed to grow, it won't try again, so you can keep them small forever. That's camphor done. Let's move on to the next tree, Gumbaob. Here are the 5 stages of Gumbaob tree, and this final one is huge. So, onto the colourful circle. How deep do we need the soil to be for us to reach that final huge stage? Through some tests, we can see that we need at least 6 deep of dirt. This tree is quite massive, so they probably need to be spaced out quite far. So let's try all the way out here on this light pink. Nope. What about here on the light purple? Nope. Even out here on the grey isn't enough. I guess I need to make my circles go out further. So quickly using the circular paint tool with a mask set as to not overpaint the existing circles, it's been expanded. Turns out I needed to go all the way out to the pale orange cloth before it would grow fully. As before, I tested in multiple locations around the circle. So the conclusion, a 28 block distance between saplings for these to grow fully. Breaking a giant Gumbaob tree will give on average 1,279 logs, 33.3 sticks, 16.5 fibre and 7.8 sap. Give a Gumbaob a smaller stage of growth. To keep it at stage 1, you can put 4 blocks in a cross shape, each 1 block away from the sapling, like this. To keep it at stage 2, put a collar of blocks around the trunk where it's a 2x2. To keep it at stage 3, you can just place 4 blocks around the trunk like this. And you can do the same to prevent growth to the final stage as well. Now onto the final tier 2 tree, Birch. And this is where it becomes a little more difficult. So again, the sapling says 5 stages and 2 days to grow. And behind me are 4 stages for Birch. Now, with the previous 2 saplings, we could simply figure out the conditions required for each one of these to grow to the final stage, and then as long as we meet those conditions, the tree will grow fully. But for Birch and a few others, this is not the case. We need to both meet the required conditions and also just be lucky. Now, what do I mean by be lucky? Well, let's go over to my next test setup, which is this big array of birch trees. As you can see, they're all in the exact same starting conditions, yet they all seem to be in different growth stages. Even when I progress time further, we see that none of them are growing anymore. So, some of them seem to have stopped, while others have grown fully, despite the conditions being identical. So counting up what we have 100% of the saplings making it to stage 1, and then also all of them made it to stage 2, yet only 52% made it to stage 3, and a measly 5% to stage 4. None of them made it to the stage 5 that is claimed on the sapling, so it is possible, but it's probably very low, my guess of around 0.5%. Here is what a stage 5 birch tree should look like from my testing, and this is from my previous video before update 4 came out, when birch trees behaved normally. So it would appear that birch trees are not that great for farming, but all hope is not lost. Remember how I said that the orientation of a tree isn't random, but in fact determined by the XYZ coordinates of the sapling? Well, that's the case here too with the stages the sapling reaches. So if I replant all of these birch trees, we'd find the exact same ones reach stage 4 and the exact same ones got stuck at stage 3, etc. What this means is that once we find a spot that does grow stage 4 or 5 birch trees, then we can keep growing saplings on that spot for a tree farm. This of course is no help if you want to grow a stage 4 or 5 tree in a specific location for a build. There's not much point going through the conditions required to grow them as close as possible, as your farm will be dependent on where you can find the good XYZ spots. Just make sure that for dirt depth it is at least 4 blocks deep, as you can still constrict a tree to a lower stage even if it is on a good spot. Now, I did have a look at the values for the good XYZ spots, and I didn't manage to find a pattern that made it predictable, so I believe it truly is random. Now we have gone through the added complexity of the non-guaranteed growth stages, we're ready to go back to the tier 1 saplings that we missed. Quickly though, before we do, I'm aware that I've provided a lot of numbers in the last few minutes. Don't worry, you don't need to rewatch this video every time you need to find out about a tree type, because I have all the data in a table that you can download from the link in the description below. Also, I'll put the world I'm in as a download too, so you can look at each of the trees yourself and use my test setups as well. Of course, you don't have to download all of that and you can continue rewatching this video each time. It'll be great for my analytics. Another thing that would be great for my analytics would be to like the video if you found it helpful so far, and perhaps subscribe to the channel if you've been watching multiple of my videos and still haven't subbed already. Awful segue out of the way, we can get back to the trees. Let's go to the tier 1 saplings that we skipped, which both cost 5 life essence each. So Aspen. This is what each of the stages looks like. And just like with Birch, it's not guaranteed you'll get the later stages, even if the conditions are identical. So using my array of 100 saplings, let's see how many progress to each stage. Okay, so it's similar to Birch. A quick count shows us that 100% made it to stage 1 and 2, 56% to stage 3, 6% to stage 4, and just a single tree, so 1% to the final stage 5. Same as with Birch, there's not much point seeing how close we can grow these trees, as instead we will be looking for the good XYZ coordinates to grow saplings on. For dirt depth though, again I'd suggest at least 4. On to Beech next, which is the second tier 1 sapling. Here behind me is what each stage looks like, and just like with the previous tree, beech tree growth is not guaranteed. Using our 100 sapling array, let's see the probabilities. Okay, so a quick count, 100% grew to stage 1 and 2, 93% to stage 3, 14% to stage 4, and just 1% to stage 5. So this does have a slightly higher chance than the Birch and Aspen, but it's still not great. That's it for the tier 1 saplings, so from here on we'll go in order, so let's go to the tier 3 saplings that we unlock at a level 4 farmer's workstation, and these all cost 15 life essence each. The first one in the list is Ash, and this is one of the original saplings, but unlike the other original saplings, this one does seem to grow fine fully 100% of the time, assuming you have enough space of course. The sapling says 2 days and 5 stages, and here are what those 5 stages look like. There's a funky thing with ash trees, and that is you can get the final stage to automatically break itself if you grow it on just a 1x1 pillar or floating block. So to make sure it stays, make sure you have a cross of blocks as a minimum. Now we can test the required conditions at our colourful circle again. Depth wise, we see that we need 5 deep, despite the final stage not even having any roots. And for spacing, we can see that with a gap of 14, we can guarantee growth from all angles. From each ash tree, you can expect to get on average 120 logs, 95.8 sticks, 11 fibre and 29 sap. If you want a smaller ash tree in your world, then to constrict the growth, you can place a block 6 above the sapling to keep it at stage 1, a ring around the sapling for permanent stage 2, to keep it at stage 3, you can ensure that there's a layer of stone of at least 3x3 in size below, 3 blocks beneath the dirt. To prevent growth to the final stage, you can surround the 1x1 trunk with blocks, as that will need to widen to 2x2 for the final stage, and these blocks will stop that. Now on to Amber. This sapling says it has only 2 stages over 2 days, which is half right. It does take 2 days, but it has 4 stages, and here is what they look like. We can then assess the depth required, and we find that that is 4 blocks. From my coloured circle test, I could plant them as close as 19 blocks in radius away. Each amber tree dropped on average 397 logs, 86.8 sticks, 18.3 fibre and 20 sap. To keep an amber sapling smaller, to keep it at stage 1, place a block 6 blocks above the sapling. To keep it at stage 2, make sure there's a layer of stone at least 3x3 with only 1 deep dirt. And to keep it at stage 3, it's the same as before, but with 2 blocks of dirt above. Now we can move on to bamboo. I'm sure this is one you've struggled with, so it is actually possible to get a sapling to grow all the way to the size that gives logs. Just like with the other non-guaranteed saplings, this one is the same. So let's go to my 100 sapling array to see what the probability is. So this seems to have quite the drop-off. 100% make it to stage 1, 82 to stage 2, only 24 to stage 3, 15 to stage 4, and only a single one to stage 5, which actually has the logs. Luckily for bamboo though, you can grow these directly next to each other, so it's much easier to find the spots that actually grow these logs, and then you can sort of remember these locations or mark them somehow, and then only grow the bamboo on those spots in future to get the guaranteed logs. Once you have found a spot that guarantees the growth to the bamboo log stage, you can expect around 25 logs per sapling. Next on the list is Banyan, and the growth stages look like this. In terms of dirt depth, we find that just 2 deep is sufficient. And I was able to grow them successfully at a radius of 20 blocks away from the original one. Breaking a banyan tree will give you on average 201 logs, 155 sticks, 19.3 fibre and 40 sap. To keep banyan trees at a smaller size, you can put a block 4 above the sapling to keep it at stage 1, a block 7 above to keep it at stage 2, and to keep at stage 3 or 4, put a collar of blocks around the trunk. Next, we can progress onto jungle saplings, which look like this across the stages. In terms of dirt depth, again you just need 2 blocks deep. And for spacing, I was able to grow fully sized trees consistently at a radius of 19 blocks. On average, each jungle tree gives 230 logs, 153 sticks, 22.3 fibre and 42 saps. Keeping jungle trees at smaller growth stages is as simple as putting a block 4 above the sapling to keep it at stage 1, putting blocks around the base for stages 2, 3 and 4. Next, we can move on to oak trees, and oak has been nerfed so hard since update 4. Previously, you'd be easily able to grow these large stage 7 oak trees, but now it would appear that most seem to just get stuck at this puny stage 1. This is because oak is now one of those saplings that doesn't guarantee growth to the next stage. So going to the array of saplings, let's see how we get on. Oh my, it's so much worse than I thought. Whilst they have all grown past the sapling stage, 29 have already stopped at stage 1, meaning only 71% progressed beyond that. 54% made it to stage 3, 33% to stage 4 and 5% to stage 5. The sapling tooltip says there should be 7 stages, and before update 4 I could grow all of these 7 stages. So it might still be possible, but just exceedingly unlikely due to how these probabilities work. So yeah, oak trees massively nerfed to the point I think they might actually just be bugged. Moving on, we get to Palo saplings, and here is what the 5 stages look like. Taking the sapling to our colourful test circle, we can first find out that we only need 1 deep of dirt for this to grow fully. And for spatial radius, a gap of 14 blocks between saplings is sufficient. Each Palo tree should drop on average 97.5 logs, 36.5 sticks, 8.5 fibre and 11 sap. To keep a Palo tree small, you can put a block 3 blocks above the sapling to keep it at stage 1, build a ring 5 blocks above the sapling to keep it at stage 2, and to keep it at stage 3 or 4, you just need to surround the bottom of the trunk with blocks. Moving on to Sallow trees now, and I know this one was the bane of so many players before update 4, being super hard to find and being the only way to get the 60 golden wood required for the tier 8 farmer's workbench. But that's not a problem anymore, since you can grow these from a tier 4 workstation for the cost of only 15 life essence per tree. It'll take 2 days to fully grow and has 5 stages, which look like this. The dirt depth required for Sallow trees is 4 blocks. And the minimum distance between saplings I found to work at a radius of 23 blocks. Each Sallow tree gives on average 460 logs, 18.2 sticks, 21.3 fibre and 5.5 sap. To constrict the growth of Sallow trees, you can place a block 6 above the saplings to keep it at stage 1, put a ring around the sapling to keep it at stage 2, and the easiest way to keep it at stage 3 is to put a block just 1 below the dirt, keeping it only 1 deep. Keeping it at stage 4 is as simple as surrounding the trunk with blocks. Moving on to the next sapling, and that is Spruce, which grow fully over 5 stages, which look like this. Testing the dirt depth required, and we find that 4 is sufficient. And when it comes to how close we can grow these to each other, it's incredible. These can be grown as close as 3 blocks away. Whilst they can be grown close together, they don't drop all too much, giving only 29.5 logs, 25 sticks, 1.8 fibre and 3.5 sap on average per tree. Keeping spruce trees small requires you to put a block 4 above the sapling to keep it at stage 1, 8 blocks above to keep it at stage 2, keeping the dirt only 1 deep to keep it at stage 3, and put a ring around the trunk to keep it at stage 4. Now on to frozen spruce, which has the exact same stages as regular spruce. Yet somehow this one behaves completely differently, as frozen spruce, like some of the other trees we have covered, doesn't always grow to the next stage. So taking this sapling to our array of 100, let's see what we get growing. So this is quite disastrous. We have only 37% of the trees reaching beyond stage 1, 13% beyond stage 2, then most of those are then reaching stage 4 at 14%, and only one of them reaching stage 5. The drops from these trees are identical to regular spruce, and since that one grows normally, if you're growing it to be farmed, just stick to the regular spruce. We're now about halfway through the saplings, and the table is filling up nicely. Remember, you can download this spreadsheet from the link in the description, and subscribe while you're there. Let's take a break from looking at the saplings and go into more detail into how these constrictions play out in realistic scenarios outside of growing a bunch of the same type of tree. So what if you're growing a mix of saplings rather than just one type? Well, the simple and easiest solution is to average the spacing values between the two types. So for example, let's grow an ash tree next to this sallow tree. As we have previously found, ash needs a sapling spacing of 14 blocks between trees and sallow 23 blocks between trees. The average of those two values is 18.5, so let's grow them 19 blocks apart. And as you can see, we had no trouble here. But in some cases you can go much closer due to the trees having very different heights. For example, take this blue fig, which we will come to later. Despite needing massive spacing between them, a shorter tree, however, can be planted much closer than the average values would suggest. So look at how close I can plant these ash trees, because the widest parts of both tree types are at completely different heights. And, well, what if it's not a tree that's too close but say a wall or part of your build? Again, so the safest method is you can now just half the radius value that's been found, but again, like depending on the rotation that the tree ends up having, you may be able to go a little closer. Also, the widest part of the tree is at the top, so if your build is low, you can go much closer. Take this ash sapling here, I have this random structure near it, and it's still able to grow fully because the structure isn't in the way of any of the stages of growth. The general rule of thumb is that the leaves can overlap with other trees or builds without preventing growth, but if there is a full block in the way of where a log or a branch needs to grow, then that will stop it growing to that next stage. That's why I'm also providing this world download, so you can see the sizes and the shapes for the trees for yourself and make the call as to if you think you have space for each one. For dirt depth then, I've been doing all the tests on a pillar as it's a lot easier to show and demonstrate, and if you're farming trees then absolutely do it on pillars or a floating block as it also makes cutting down a lot easier. But if you're growing them in the ground because you want to make them look nice, then make sure that the dirt depth is deep enough for the entire area that the roots need to grow into. So for something skinny like a spruce tree, that's easy. But for a really wide one like this final stage sallow tree, the dirt needs to be deep enough for a really large area for all of these roots. With that slightly more detailed explanation done, we can go back to testing each sapling. So where were we? Oh yeah, on to Stormbark. So here are the 5 stages of growth that'll grow over 2 days. For dirt depth, you'll need at least 3 blocks of dirt. For the spacing required between saplings, I was able to grow them successfully as close as 12 blocks away. Each max stage Stormbark tree drops on average 265 logs, 128 sticks, 27.5 fibre and 28 sap. However, we also get around 90 blue moss per tree, making this a great place to get that renewably if you need it. If you want to constrict the growth of a Stormbark tree, you can put blocks around the bend in the trunk to keep it at stage 1 and 2, and to keep it at stages 3 and 4, you can put a ring of blocks around the trunk. On to the next sapling, Wind Willow. Here are the 5 stages of growth for willow trees. Testing depth of dirt at our test circle, we find that 4 deep is required for the final stage, and for sapling spacing, 12 blocks apart is sufficient. Each tree will give on average 286 logs, 11 fibre, and no sticks or sap, which is interesting. It will also drop on average 16 wind willow fruit, which is a food source and also a light source if you place it on the ground or in your hand. If you want to purposefully constrict willow trees for a smaller size, you can keep it at stage 1 by putting a block 3 above the sapling. Keeping it at stage 2 requires keeping the dirt only 1 deep. Keeping it at stage 3 is easy to achieve by making sure that there is a layer of stone 2 blocks below the sapling. And keeping it at stage 4 can be done by putting a collar of blocks around the trunk. Awesome! Time for the next sapling, which is Frostwood. So this sapling has 5 stages of growth which look like this. And in terms of depth, you only need a single block of dirt depth. From the testing circles, we can see that we can get them to grow as close as 10 blocks away, and each tree will drop on average 147 logs, 53.5 sticks, 4.5 fibre and 12 sap. If you want to keep a Frostwood tree at a smaller growth stage, you can put a block 3 above the sapling to keep it at stage 1, and for all the other stages, it's easiest to prevent growth by surrounding the base with stone blocks. That covers all the saplings from that level of workstation. Now we can upgrade to level 5, and all of the saplings unlocked at this stage cost 20 life essence each. The first sapling we get here is the Azure sapling. The 5 stages of growth for Azure look like this. The required depth is 3 blocks, and they can be grown fully as close as 11 blocks. Each tree will drop on average 108 logs, 30 sticks, 9.8 fibre and 5.5 sap, as well as 15 azure fruit and 35 blue moss. Putting a block 4 above the sapling will keep it at stage 1, keeping it at stage 2 is easy by putting blocks around the base of the trunk. Keeping it at stage 3 and 4 can be done by surrounding the trunk with blocks as well. Now onto Blue Fig, which was the giant tree I showed earlier. So the 5 stages of Blue Fig look like this. The dirt depth required to reach the full stages is 4 blocks. And for spacing, we need a gap of 21 blocks. Each of these giant blue fig trees drop on average 364 logs, 188 sticks, 16.5 fibre and 47 sap. Keeping a blue fig at a smaller stage can be achieved by putting a block 4 above the sapling to keep it at stage 1, keeping the dirt only 1 deep for stage 2, and keeping it at stage 3 and 4 can be best achieved by putting blocks around the trunks. Now we can move on to the next sapling, Maple. The 5 stages of maple growth look like this. You need the dirt to be at least 5 deep in order to grow maple trees to the last stage, and for spacing I managed to grow them successfully as close as 19 blocks away. Interestingly, you can see that these maple trees all look different. Normally, as I said, the trees only have one model that's rotated randomly, but for maple trees it appears that there's 3 different structures, a straight one, a curved one and a split trunk one. And again, the structure picked will depend on the XYZ coordinates you planted the sapling on. On average, each maple tree will drop 266 logs, 44.36, 22 fibre and 14 sap. Keeping a maple tree small requires a block placed 4 above the sapling to keep it at stage 1, keeping the dirt only 2 deep to constrict it to stage 2, keeping it at stage 3 and 4 is best achieved by putting blocks around the trunk. Now, the next sapling is Redwood. This tree used to be the absolute king of wood farming, growing all the way to these giant redwoods. However, from my testing, I was unable to grow any sapling to the giant stage since update 4. So the 4 stages of growth that do seem to exist look like this. I have a 5th tree there, but it's the same as the stage 4 and it didn't actually grow to the giant redwood like I expected. For dirt depth then, 3 blocks deep appears to be enough for stage 4. And we can plant the saplings as close as 7 blocks away and still get them to reach stage 4. Each tree gives, on average, 172 logs, which is, a lot less than the 1,500 we used to be able to get from the giant redwoods. 31.3 sticks, 4.8 fibre, and 7 sap. If you want to constrict a redwood to a smaller size, you can put a block 6 above the sapling to keep it at stage 1, surround the base of the tree to keep it at stage 2, keep the dirt only 1 deep to keep it at stage 3. Moving on to spiral saplings next. These have 5 stages that look like this. The dirt depth required is just 1 deep, and I was able to grow them as close as 13 blocks. Each stage 5 spiral tree drops on average 132 spiral logs, 61 sticks, 1.5 fibre and 17 sap. Keeping a spiral tree small is as easy as putting a block 2 above the sapling to keep it at stage 1, and the other stages can be constrained by surrounding the bases with blocks. That was the last sapling at that tier, so upgrading the workstation to tier 6 and we unlock 2 more, each costing 25 life essence. So the first sapling at this stage is Cedar. The 5 stages of Cedar look like this, and it's another one where you can't guarantee that it will grow to the later stages. So onto our 100 sapling array, let's see what we get. So doing a little count, we see that all of the saplings reached stages 1 and 2. 42% made it to stage 3, and 17% to stage 4, but only 8% to the final stage 5. This is the best of all of the ones so far that don't guarantee growth, but seeing as this is the only sapling that gives darkwood, you do actually have to farm this one. So annoyingly, it probably is worth trying to find those good spots for it to reach stage 5 if you want a lot of darkwood. The next sapling is Wisteria. It has 5 growth stages, and here's what they look like. Stage 5 does grow 100% of the time, but there's another interesting quirk with Wisteria trees, and that is that they also grow pink crystals at stage 4, which then disappear once it does grow to stage 5. So if you want a crystal farm, this is a good way to get a load of them, and in this case we do want to constrict the tree to stage 4. So for Wisteria, I'll cover both the conditions for stage 4 and stage 5 trees so that you can then choose which one you want to farm. So for stage 4, you'll need 3 deep for the dirt, and they can be grown as close as 16 blocks apart. But note, when they're broken, the crystal at the top doesn't break automatically, so they need to manually go up and break it. So it may be worth building a walkway above where you can easily harvest the crystals from, like this. Each stage 4 tree will drop 4 to 5 crystal shards, 119 logs, 9.5 sticks, 11.5 fibre and 1.8 sap. If it's a stage 5 tree you're after, then you'll need a depth of 9 blocks, and they can be placed as close as 24 blocks apart. While these stage 5 trees don't drop any crystals, they will drop a lot more of everything else. On average 387 logs, 214 sticks, 25 fibre and 50 sap. Constricting the Wisteria trees to smaller growth stages is as simple as putting a block 5 above the sapling to keep at stage 1, blocks around the trunk to keep it at stage 2 or 3, and then to keep it at stage 4 you just need to make sure that the dirt is less than 9 deep, which is almost always the case anyway. The next saplings require us to upgrade the workstation to level 7, and each will cost 30 life essence each. So the first one is Bottletree, and the 5 stages look like this. So this one needs dirt to be 4 blocks deep, and they can be grown to stage 5 as close as 16 blocks together. Each tree will drop on average 101 Bottletree logs, which can be turned into drywood, 54 sticks, 4.8 fibre and 1.8 sap. To grow a smaller Bottletree intentionally, you can keep it at stage 1 by putting a ring of blocks 2 blocks above the sapling, at stage 2 by putting a block 3 blocks above the sapling and keeping it at stage 3 by keeping the dirt only 2 deep, and at stage 4 by putting a ring around the trunk. Onto the next sapling, which is the dry sapling. The 5 stages look like this. The dirt depth required for a dry tree is just a single block deep, and they can be planted as close as 12 blocks away to grow fully. Each tree drops on average 52 logs, 17.3 sticks, 4 fibre and 4 sap. Keeping a smaller dry tree can be done by putting a block 3 above the sapling to keep it at stage 1, and for all the later stages, surround the base with blocks. Onto the next tree, which is Firewood, and the 5 stages of growth look like this. To grow to stage 5, the dirt needs to be at least 4 deep, and they can be grown as close as 11 blocks away from each other. Each fire tree drops on average 127 logs, which are the only ones that can be turned into blackwood, 0.75 sticks, 4.8 fibre, but no sap. Constricting fire trees to smaller stages can be achieved by putting a block 4 above the sapling to keep it at stage 1, a ring around the sapling for stage 2, a layer of stone at the height of the top dirt for stage 3, and a ring around the trunk for stage 4. Next, onto petrified saplings, which grow in these 5 stages. To grow to the final stage, the dirt needs to be 6 blocks deep, and they can be grown as close as 8 blocks away from each other. Each tree drops on average 279 logs, no sticks, 4.3 fibre and also no sap. The trees annoyingly need to be broken both at the bottom and halfway up, which does make them annoying to farm, but necessary being the only way to renewably get dead wood. Keeping smaller stage petrified trees can be done by putting a block 6 above the sapling for stage 1, putting a ring around the sapling for stage 2, and putting a ring around the trunk for stages 3 and 4. Onto the final sapling now, and that's Palm from the tier 8 station, and it costs 35 life essence. So palm trees grow taller and taller, but that's for the vertical palm trees, and 50% of the time the palm will grow to the side as well, like you can see this fifth one here. Again, this is determined by the XYZ coordinate of the sapling location, and 50% of the time it will be vertical, and 50% of the time it will go to the side. You can constrict the height of a vertical palm by placing a block directly above at the height you don't want it to exceed. Palm trees do not ever grow to a stage where they have logs, so the only place to get these is still in chests. And that's it for the saplings you can get from the farmer's workbench. But behind me there are 2 more tree types that you can grow, but currently the saplings are creative inventory only. There'll probably be ways to get these later, so I'll include them for now. The first of these is the poison tree, and that has these 5 stages of growth. The dirt depth required for poison trees is 2 deep, and they can be planted as close as 13 blocks. Each tree drops on average 218 logs, 1 stick, 1.8 fibre but no sap. They can be constricted by putting a block 4 above the sapling to keep it at stage 1, a ring of blocks 4 above the sapling to keep it at stage 2, a block 6 above to keep it at stage 3, and put a ring around the base or the sapling to keep it at stage 4. The next sapling is the crystal sapling, which has these 5 stages. Sadly, none of these are quite as big as the giant crystal trees that you find in Zone 4 jungles. These need 3 deep of dirt to grow and can be planted as close as 17 blocks away from each other. You'll get on average 138 logs, 25.8 sticks, 10.3 fibre and 8 sap, but also a lot of other stuff that doesn't break with the tree, such as pink crystal blocks, winterberry bushes and shale rocks. And with that final sapling, we are done. Like I said, I've spent multiple weeks deep diving into every sapling so that you'll never struggle again with growing or farming trees in Hytale. So remember, all of this info is available in the spreadsheet that you can download from the link in the description, and the world download with all the trees and their stages, as well as my test setups if you wish to try them for yourself. If you found this helpful, then please do remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Hytale videos as I make them. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.